Good morning, grasshoppers. Very quick study stream. Where is our timer? There we go. Now we're ready. I was noticing the timer was missing just a little bit too late. Victor Kubraychek. Also picked up a lovely out-of-print book last weekend by my good friend Bill Lombardi. Quick victories and 200 recent master games. I might do a tribute to Bill Lombardi at some point, as he was a very good writer. Queen Pawn Opening Index, King Pawn Opening Index, Index of Players and Games. Not such a great index on players. It's only a games listing of the 200 games. Lists 199. I wonder if it counts a game that is in the introduction. Games 1 through 200. Crazy. This game number 200. Just an opening gambit. Interesting. We are going to do that one. We separate some of these books. Maravich. We do need to do Fisher. For MD Night Zero, I think we're going to do Fisher, Fisher, and Fisher, because that also draws in the viewers. Magnus Carlsen sometimes draws in the viewers, not always. Morphy. At the moment. We're going to start off, though, by attempting to do at least 8 or 9 games from the Informants volume of miniatures. Lovely book. You can actually get it in the discounted version area on Shahovsky.com. Check out the Informant website. Don't hesitate to let them know that you got there from me. As well. So getting straight to it. One of my favorite Morphy opponents is his uncle, Ernest Morphy. For those of you who aren't aware, Paul Morphy got his love for chess at around or before the age of 8 when he watched his uncle play. And in 1845, born in 1837, I have visited his grave in New Orleans. He witnessed the U.S. Championship match for $1,000 US, I believe, was the prize fund, which is quite a lot of money today. I don't know what $1,000 in 1845 was worth, but it was covered in every newspaper across the country. It was between Eugene Rousseau, who did not win, coached and seconded by Ernest Morphy, and took place in New Orleans. I believe Eugene Rousseau may have stayed at the Paul Morphy household on Royal Street. Lovely restaurant called Brennan's Steakhouse now. If you should ever get to New Orleans, you can actually tour the Paul Morphy house, and you can see the Paul Morphy room, where they have an unfortunately terrible chess set that has been abused in a library den area where they more than likely played chess regularly. Sat in those chairs. I don't believe it's the original chess set, unfortunately. If I could find a chess set circa 1845 that may or may not have been used, the type of which may not have been used and may or may not have been used in the U.S. Championship match of the time, I'd probably will it to them. In this particular instance, though, Paul Morphy in 1856, having completed his world travels, you can see the maturity in his play in this particular position on the third move. Now here, there are only 3 moves for white worth considering. We're going to start off our candidates tour with that. 3 moves for white that you believe are worth playing. There are about 4 or 5 moves that are worth considering in this position. I guess 5 moves if you count the rather innocuous and or slow variation. Unfortunately, I also need to use the facilities, which is going to take me longer than 30 seconds, so we will cover those in just a moment. I just open up my WhatsApp because my class will be going. I will also make a highlight out of this. Therefore, now the only 3 moves worth considering are those that are direct attacks on the center, to be honest. The third best move in the position is d4. The second best move in this position is bishop to c4. And of course, the move that Paul Morphy played in 1856 after, with his maturing, was the Ruy Lopez with bishop to b5, where he's about to set off for the New York Chess Congress, or I should say the American Chess Congress of 1857, where he is going to take the world by storm. This took place on 14th Street, near 7th Avenue, I believe, perhaps between 6th and 7th Avenue in Manhattan. And it was the first American Chess Congress featuring all of the best players, Lewis Paulson et al. And the 2 moves that could be considered next are the Ponziani, which is, of course, considered to be better for black, well, microscopically, minimally better for black after the move d5. I don't believe I purchased the book on the Ponziani. The last book I saw on the Ponziani did not have illustrative games, but I believe one has come out since then that has games. I prefer books that have, games illustrating each chapter and opening variation. And if you wish to follow the details of the variations, you could you can have an opening tree or a reference at the end of the book for an index. And of course, the absolutely equal 4 knights game. The absolutely equal 4 knights game, the only way for white to obtain an edge in this particular position, if you ask me. Bishop to b5 has run its course because these pawns are both under attack and counterattack. Believe it or not, with a new move that was introduced recently into Grandmaster practice, a3, putting the onus on black to try to decide how to proceed in this position. After all, I feel like this position could easily be Zugzwang. And lastly, the more forceful d4, which is, those are the only 2 moves in the 4 knights game that are really worth considering. Obviously, after a3 or d4, one has to deal with the main line involving bishop to b4. But I have to say, even knight takes e4, the Halloween-esque gambit, is quite interesting and good, because after knight takes e4, queen e7, there's only one move here that can somewhat maintain the edge for white. After all, we have an outstanding knight in the center, and it is somewhat difficult in this position to realize how strong these 2 knights are, and we're going to hold our own with the center with f3. Of course, black can try to get his piece back with d5, but now further pressure arises on the c6 square, and this is microscopically better for white. Little known detail of the 4 knights game, and or if you're playing black. But Paul Morphy did play bishop to b5, and Morphy's own a6. By the way, this is called Morphy's defense, even though it was played rather religiously in the Eugene Rousseau Charles H. Stanley match. The problem was that Charles Stanley was playing bishop to b5, and Rousseau was playing a6 with the immediate b5, which weakens the queenside pawns immeasurably. Morphy's contribution to opening theory was not playing b5 right away. That is the essence of the Morphy variation, but to continue developing and gaining space and time by attacking the e4 pawn and preparing the move d5. So in a sense, basically, white can keep up the tension with castles. This threatens the indirect attack on the king because there's nothing on e7. And in this particular position, believe it or not, Starkist believes that knight takes e4. Starkist believes that knight takes e4 is better than the closed variation with bishop e7. After all, bishop e7 is a little passive, but once this pawn on e4 is protected, there is a threat to the knight, and there is a threat to the pawn. Therefore, this is why black plays b5 and bishop to b3. And the current state of theory, as Magnus Carlsen played against Nepomniachtchi, is castles. Current state of theory. If black plays d6, then you should note that the pawn on e5 is absolutely guarded, and black is threatening to win the bishop pair with knight a5. Hence, in this particular position, it is commonly believed that c3 is the best move. There's nothing wrong with a4, as in the anti-martial, but c3 preserves the bishop pair for latent use later. And this was recommended by, or I should say, this is recommended by the role model games that you might find from Bobby Fischer, Garry Kasparov, and many others for the most part, and Capablanca, and for time immemorial. Going back, Paul Morphy's uncle, Ernest Morphy, played bishop c5. And in this particular position, there are only a few good moves for white. One more time, we will give ourselves a moment to pause and consider 3 variations for white. Now, of course, if you get all 3, you should give yourself bonus points, because it is indeed, make sure our tagline is up there. Our board is as large as we can make it. Oh. As it turns out, we'll widen this up so we can see our evaluation bar. You may feel free to like this study. I will share it now. You can also search for this in our Discord for the most part. There is a World Championship study or game studies link. The link to this particular study is right here. Right now we only have 5 likes. But the name of this study is the pre-WC base Paul Morphy, if you wish to find it in the studies, in the public studies on lichess.org, or lichess.org, as the Europeans like to call it. The bishop to c5, the classical variation, was one that Bobby Fischer himself played when he was very young. This was Bobby Fischer's first opening as black against the Ruy Lopez. He also was well versed in the 2 knights defense, the Evans Gambit, and many other openings, as we already know. He studied the ins and outs of those openings through the classical games. The sun is coming up, so I might get blasted out. Might need to close the window. Oh, I didn't start our 3 candidate moves timer. Got to get into the habit of doing this. And I'm going to use the facilities while I'm at it. Now that the time's up, hopefully you are participating actively and actively learning by finding moves. Now, Paul Morphy does play perhaps the best move, which is c3. The third best move in the position.
This nation owes you a huge debt.
Thank you for the follow. Everyone hates me. The third best move in this position is, of course, going for the fork trick. This does lead to a minimal advantage for white, but black does get some counterplay with c6. The second best move in the position is simply castles. Unfortunately, because of the nature of this position, black might get some counterplay with knight to d4, gaining time on the bishop. So c3, being the best move, restricts black pieces, controls the center. Put off our timer. And allows white to continue to build up a big center. As I mentioned in another stream, as we rated, was it that we rated earlier? We rated Alex GM 96 earlier. As I mentioned in his stream, the key to really good fundamental positional play is to build your position like a house from the ground up with good fundamentals, just solidly expanding layer after layer, improving your position until your opponent cracks. Very important. Where are you from? Everyone hates me. Don't tell me you're from Russia. Then it's not just you, obviously. That's a Ukraine joke, by the way. Should there be a Ukraine joke? Reading all the tweets this morning of the yes, of course, Pegasus. We do know that that is the center of Swedish chess for the Master Chess Dojo at the moment. Especially since Tiger has joined your club league team. Another way to find out more about your own city. It's going to be very warm today. 16 degrees Celsius. Wow, why am I wearing a long sleeve shirt? Who would have known, right? So Ernest Morphy, though, prevents, this is a very common technique of preventing d4 by putting pressure on the e4 pawn. There is the threat of capturing on d4 and putting pressure on the e4 pawn. And so queen e7 was commonly played in order to hold the center. The three ways of dealing with the center are holding the center, a favorite of Steinitz, giving up the center, which dynamically was often employed in the post-Romantic period, and of course the Romantic period when you capture all the pawns, let's say in the Evans Gambit, giving up the center in order to obtain a pawn, or at least try to obtain free play for a pawn. And then attacking the center. Attacking the center, by nature, could be considered the king's gambit or the queen's gambit, where you attack the center and then you put the onus on black as to whether or not they're going to attack the center. Further attacking the center openings consist of the Grunfeld, the Benko in a roundabout way, Benoni, things like that really try to put pressure on the e4 pawn, just like this one. So inherently, well, this gives us the clue that we need to get our king out of the center, and it's time for black to start counterattacking with a move like knight f6. And now that the king is out of the center, and the rook is able to put direct pressure on the king and the queen, d4 is in the air. Now white has a very clear advantage at this point, because black's pieces are rather awkwardly placed and the center is under assault. It is hard to believe that white has such a clear advantage, but we're gaining time, we're expanding. We have a bishop that's ready to flow, we have a rook that's ready to flow, and black's bishop is not out of this, not even close to being developed, and neither is the king even close to getting out of the center. So, in keeping with the holding the center option, now there are many games in the wonderful book by Irving Chernev, Logical Chess Move by Move, where d5, giving up the center or closing the center, would be a mistake because then black's knight would come back out into the center onto other squares. So d5 is not really an option for Paul Morphy. He was always one for speedy development. He believed in bishop g5, which may or may not be the best move in this position. Keeping the tension, perhaps, not willing to exchange pawns, rook to e1 could be better, or perhaps even a4 threatening a5 at the right moment, because we're really threatening bishop takes knight, and thank you very much in this position. So honestly, a4 could well be the best move. I'm going to give that one an exclamation mark for future reference. Oh, no, I'm not giving that one I'm going to give a4 the exclamation mark for future reference, as perhaps being the best move in this particular position. I did miss my chance for the expansion, but bishop to b5 was played by Paul Morphy in accordance with his normal principles, and keeping the tension is usually recommended. Paul Morphy exchanges, and black plays a very strange move here, perhaps for the open file. Queen takes f6 is ideal. And now that black's pawn center is crippled, now is the time to really consider the possibilities of gaining the space with gain of time. So Paul Morphy's uncle, of course, chooses knight to d8. While there's nothing wrong with knight to b8 inherently, knight to b8 could be a better move. There are lines in the Chigorin's defense where this is the order of the day, knight to d8. The idea, of course, in Chigorin's defense, black having already had his pawns out, is that this knight can maneuver its way back as well into the center, depending on where this pawn is located. But knight to d8, even the Chigorin's, is no longer really seen today. Chigorin's variation of the closed Ruy Lopez. So now, moves for white. Candidate moves for white. And there are a plethora of moves that lead to an advantage for white. One is better than the others, and it is the one that Paul Morphy plays. By the way, the Snatched Opportunities on the Chessboard book by Bill Lombardi was a treasure that I found courtesy of Fred Wilson, who's located on 41 Union Square West in Manhattan. Fred Wilson Books. If you want to find his website, it is fredwilsonchess.com. I'll put it in here. Whoops, I can spell com. fredwilsonchess.com. Definitely check out his out-of-print and rare books collection. If you cannot find a book, it is possible that he will make a deal with you. Knight h4 indeed.
This nation owes you a huge debt.
Knight h4 indeed, Pegasus. We are already eyeing the square f5. Black is going to have a very difficult time trying to get his pieces out. Other moves in this position that could be considered are knight on b to d2. And perhaps we can even try retreating our bishop to put more pressure on this diagonal. Because black is going to chip away at our center, ironically, after the move knight a4. And here, for the most part. It is a very difficult moment for Ernest Morphy to try to dig himself out of this particular mess. The move c6, while appears direct, unfortunately also runs into knight f5, and the queen does need to seek some activity. Queen f8 is rather passive. Queen to c5, b4, and by coming forward, I think he was probably hoping to expose these pawns to further attacks, which might open lines for his pieces. Although Ernest Morphy by no means was as good as his nephew. I believe there was also Alonso Morphy, and I'm wondering if Alonso Morphy was his father. I have to actually do a little bit more research on this. But the chess was very large in the Morphy household. D takes c6, B takes c6. Prefaces the move, knight to d6 check. Only one move for the king. And now candidate moves for white. Candidate moves for white. What can be done here to increase the pressure on the black position? This game between Paul Morphy and Ernest Morphy is a great example of the harmony of piece coordination versus the lack of space and the cramped position that black has. Thank you for the follow, Alex96. Alex GM96. Alex GM, by the way, is a FIDE master. I know I've already mentioned in the past how it always confounds me how certain players have their hopes and dreams and aspirations and their in their stream title name. Thank you, Roken. Those of you who haven't yet followed, let me just give a shout out to Alex GM96. FM from Montenegro. Very good player. Very good at enunciating and elaborating on his moves. So I don't expect anyone to get Paul Morphy's rather profound move, which is given an exclamation mark in the informant here. In fact, Starkist does not give Paul Morphy's move among its top 5, but for dramatic effect. One might think that Paul Morphy actually played queen to d3, but in reality, Starkist gives bishop a4, or at the very worst, on an equal footing, knight to f5 check, which I'm not entirely sure how that's going to continue, this attack. I mean, this is a very difficult position to improve on. Lastly, we could bring more pieces into the attack with the help of knight a3. Paul Morphy plays queen to d3, and it is black's reaction, perhaps, that allows the further embarrassment of the position, whether we capture on b5 or come into d6. But one has to realize that Paul Morphy is going for more. Playing it. Knight to c8 and rook to d1. This was the purpose of the queen lift, and it was to prepare the rook shift. Rook c7 is forced. Knight a3, of course, is going to further bother the daylights out of that. And black might actually get his pieces back into the game, so Rook to c7 should be played. And black has to barnacle. After all, he is a piece up, so 2 pieces for a rook. You know, maybe black can resist in this position. Paul Morphy's opponent is a little accommodating, to say the least, as he attempts to run for it. Queen takes d7 check. And just about now, I think he realizes that he's going to lose the whole kit and caboodle of his pieces for a major, major material advantage. I'm going to keep going by theme in these particular positions. Second, got the main line. Make sure that our stuff is correct at all times. If you've not yet subscribed to American Chess Magazine by Chess Informant, very ironic that the Serbian, or the publication from Belgrade, is still one of the premier learning resources for chess players worldwide. Next game, of course, is Morphy versus Anderson. And we're going to be looking at match game number 3. That was in Paris, 1858. This is, of course, once he begins his world tour after the American Chess Congress of 1857. I apologize for my broken English. No, it's not my first language. Once again, facing a valiant attacker like Adolf Anderson. Ruy Lopez is his staple. And in this particular position, there are 3 moves for black, which are considered, I should say 4. 4 perhaps moves, 2 of which are very unusual. We always have a6. And Anderson, of course, played the Berlin. But 2 other moves that lead to certain counterattacking chances are Smyslov's g6. Personally, I believe in blasting the center and causing a lot of consternation in the dark squares with bishop to g5. Black should not give in with bishop e7, though. He should not. He should play the better move, f6. And you can already see the weaknesses in black's position are creating a lot of problems. So the Cosio defense is also very intriguing and considered by Starkist Tuna to be roughly even as the 3rd best move in the position. Not bishop c5, mind you. It's like the 5th best move in the position. Probably easily the 5th best move in the position because c3 really hacks away at it. But knight f6, the Berlin defense, it's no coincidence that Adolf Anderson and the German school of chess accomplished a lot here. 3 moves for white. Candidate moves for white. f5, indeed. Sorry, Pegasus, for not getting that one. I have to remember to stop our timer. Interestingly enough, according to Starkist, there are only 3 good moves for white. I am also going for coffee at this very moment. And ironically, Pegasus, that was also Garry Kasparov, one of Garry Kasparov's favorite moves. I'll be right back with my coffee cup and coffee. Pardon me while I run. Ah! See how much time that actually took me. It is, as it turns out, it did take me 3 minutes, roughly. So 3 moves for white here. Today we know that castles is the best move, offering the pawn, opening up the center. But the second and third best moves are, believe it or not, knight to c3 and d3. Now, why knight to c3, I do not know, interestingly enough. Personally, I have a difficult time finding a move here, but I imagine that if we must choose a third move, knight to c3 leads to utter equality after bishop to b4. It's like brutal. Black gets counterattack, and there's little that we can do about it. I was just informed by my wife that I'm going to have to run her to the train station briefly, and hopefully she will message me about that. Right? That I don't, I should have left the door open. The Ruy Lopez exchange variation? Let's go back to that for just one moment. So, Rotten Lemons, good morning. You had 2 exams. Well, let's just take a quick peek. Personally, I like the exchange variation. Unfortunately, the position is too equal because we give up a very valuable bishop for a pawn, and it's very difficult to gain an advantage here with anything other than Bobby Fischer's contribution. This would be the Fischer variation. Given castles. I should leave one out just in case they call me. I would say that here, for the most part, the other move that I like to play is Lasker's move, by the way. I like to play Lasker's move, and I don't mind going into this endgame at all. This is easily the best move in the position, and play this equal position with the space advantage, because I'm a big fan of space advantages. So the exchange variation is a simplistic way to approach the Ruy Lopez. The unfortunate part about the exchange variation is that you are clarifying the structure so much. I put it on par with the London, which is not a good place. Really? You think the engines like the exchange variation? According to Starkist Tuna, Stockfish prefers bishop to c4 over the exchange variation. Bishop a4, keeping the 2 bishops. After all, the latent power of the 2 bishops isn't trifled with. It's not, for the most part. You have to really, really consider keeping those 2 bishops. And also, you're trying to encourage the pawn weaknesses on the queen side to give you targets for attack for later. The reason why the Berlin defense is one of the reasons why the Berlin defense is so popular today is because it's the #1 engine choice. Just basically you're cutting straight to the chase, attacking the center, playing actively, developing a piece, getting ready to castle, preparing d5. You get all these advantages and more with the Berlin defense. And easily it's the best move. However, the young Garry Kasparov liked d4 in the Ruy Lopez, as well as after a6, bishop a4. He liked d4 on the 5th move. This is illustrated in his in this wonderful book by Nikitin, coaching Kasparov, Alexander Nikitin. I believe that the first game in here is a lovely biographical section on the development of Garry Kasparov. But the first game in this particular book, here, make sure if I can find the name. Against Murat Kuliev is 5 d4. So we have a6, bishop a4, knight f6, d4. And this is at the age of 9 he's playing this variation. I have volume 2 as well, so I guess I'm ready for a Kasparov study stream. I don't know how many people like Garry Kasparov, but we have to add more and more and more to our understanding of the classics, such as Garry Kasparov slowly becoming one of those classic games. Since 25 years demarks, let's say, classic rock, I guess. So 25 years should also denote classical chess learning, understanding. Well, the one problem with d4 is that you cannot mess with it. You really do have to take. Moves like d6 are not really an option because black is in dire straits on the d5 square after capturing and the weakness of f7, etc. So e takes d4 needs to be played. Anderson, however, played the rather questionable secondary move. Knight takes d4. There's nothing wrong with this. This also is very equal. Knight takes d4. E takes d4. And of course, the whole purpose in playing e4 is to put pressure on the opponent's center with e5. Now, black is under a little bit of tension to find the right move here. While we can move the knight to either of these two squares, Anderson finds the best possible rejoinder, which is a counterattack. By the way, good players don't defend. They counterattack, so white actually begins to counterattack against white's king. Preparing this, also not afraid of ruining black's pawn structure. This is a very difficult move to find. And even here, there are several moves for white, only 2 of which need to be considered. Paul Morphy plays the second. Pawn takes pawn, of course, and queen takes d4 could also be considered. The knight has to go back to g8, and white gets to start the game up. Tremendous amount of time and space. Probably not worth it for compensation for the piece. But Paul Morphy does choose bishop to g5. Which is the best. Is it the best move? Probably the best move. E takes f6 gives away the tension. Black will recapture with the queen. We don't really have a lead in development. He'll get castled, not a big deal. And now white puts the question to black's king, which has no choice but to step aside. Now comes a bit of a conundrum. How to continue this attack. Right? How to continue. Logical reasoning says perhaps we do not want to exchange queens. And I'm sorry, exchange pieces in this position. I was just looking at queen takes d4 there for a moment. Doesn't really work. But yeah, logical reasoning here. Engines are psychos indeed. They change their opinion every 2 to 3 minutes. I see our solar guy walking around the neighborhood trying to make heads or tails out of the area. Maybe they're going to do something with that street out there. I should say with a lot out there across the street. So in this particular position, h4 could be considered. Bishop f4 might want to be considered. But interestingly enough, queen takes f6 does not really benefit black, as we are going to get way ahead in time, and the queen sitting on f6 is a target for a knight. So personally, I would probably play either knight to d2 or queen to d3 here, tagging the pawn. Probably queen to d3 followed by knight to d2. Starkist believes that rook e4, preparing to double rooks, is perhaps the best move. Also, recapturing and regaining the pawn immediately. What I want to see is, I mean, Paul Morphy goes into full gambit mode. This is not so easily recommended, but he is living large in his space and time, and he does have quite a bit to go on. So, for the most part, again, I would probably choose queen to d3, but I want to see rook to e4 for a moment. Rook to e4. Black needs to get his pieces out. And what can we possibly do here in this position? Just looking very, very sketchy. Check. Takes, bishop e8. Queen d6 check. We don't have time for queen to e7 because there's a back rank mate problem. And only now does white play knight to d2. Black seems to be hanging in here. Knight f3 could run into bishop takes f3. Can't recapture with the queen. We still have a weak back rank problem. The knight to b3 looks like it, the order of the day. And there doesn't seem to be that much wrong with black's position here. Very, very difficult. Also threatening, let's just say if he plays rook takes c2, rook to d1 or rook to e1. I guess rook to e1 can be met by rook e2, so therefore we're just going to continue pressing and threatening. Pretty crazy that Paul Morphy would choose the trend of the day, which is to gambit a pawn with c3. Anderson is no slouch, of course. Anderson needs to get his pieces out at any cost, despite his pawn structure. Very difficult time choosing a good move here. Queen to d3 is still good. h3 is a nice preparatory move, but I like the rook lift that Paul Morphy chooses. It also gains time. So here, black does not choose the best move. There's absolutely nothing going on in this position. This pawn on d4 is hanging. So after a move like g6, to try to play knight takes d5, rook takes d5, that's crazy. This is everything is in black's favor here, as he can recapture at any time, and he has better mobility. It's just better. Hard to believe this isolated pawn weakness being such a huge problem. Darkest has this as down a rook for white. I guess there's nothing we can do to stop rook to d8. And our pawn structure is horrid. Craziness. Stepping in front of the pawn. Black is just totally winning this position. So queen to b3, going back for a moment to this position here with queen to b3. Black does not find g6, which certainly is absolutely equal. All he needs to do is get his pieces into the game. Instead, he plays the rather unfortunate queen to e7. So, even this position has changed quite a bit. Knight takes d5, not an option. I'm certain that Paul Morphy brings his other rook into the game. And now, a little bit too late, Ernest Morphy moves his g6 pawn. His g pawn. d5. So many good moves in this particular position. Heading into the weaknesses on that side of the board. However, Paul Morphy chooses queen to d1 to refocus on the white squares on the other side of the board. So apparently Paul Morphy was not as handy with his knights. Still a little heavy-handed with his queen. Queen f6. And we've already given away a few of the best moves in this particular position. Paul Morphy begins to load the cannon. Possibly tripling, possibly diving in. For further pressure on that. And of course, black plays rook to g8. If g6, not knight takes d5, but a4 looks good. Let's go back to that for just one moment. G6. I imagine it's to go after the b7 pawn. Yeah, there's a lot of tension for white. Let's change that. Let's change that assessment. White is still slightly better, but only slightly better. Darkest is biasing me. So, is there another move in this position after g6? We were up a pawn when we started this operation. I think the play will be worth it, though. B takes, rook takes, king to g7. There's a lot of play with these rooks. In Benko Gambit fashion against the b2 pawn. So yeah, it's only slightly better for white at best. You're absolutely right when the queen was on f6, indeed. You're on the ball there, Pegasus. On the ball. So yeah, well, g6 was the fastest way to connect his rooks. And probably the only way to achieve close to equality. But instead of that, oops. I still like the plan of knight e2, by the way. But he plays queen to d1, rook on 1 to e3. After rook to g8, candidate moves for white. I do have to check out the Quick Victories book for one moment. I'm very intrigued by it now that I've pulled my Jenga pile out. Of course, this book is written in descriptive notation. Does he do this in order of openings? Alphabetical, alkynes, alkyne, alkyne, alkyne. The really great thing about this particular book is that when Bruce Pandolfini did his traps and zaps, he did not do queen pawn openings. I would love to hopefully allow for, oh, Pegasus. Rook takes e6 indeed, because now we're just going to be up in material. Rook takes e6 ends the game. Just like that. Hopefully we're going to do all of these games that I have earmarked here. Now, of course, Paul Morphy was primarily an e4 player, so we are not going to get any d4-esque games here. Morphy versus Hampton. London, 1858. First Lasker Love. Lasker Love. Maybe she has an eye on Emmanuel Lasker for first graders. So here we are. So London, 1858. It does seem like Paul Morphy varies his moves based on the amount of respect he has for his opponent, which could be why Anderson resorted to the Sicilian defense against Paul Morphy. And of the top 5 moves in this position, I'm afraid that the Evans Gambit does not rank. Of the top 5 moves in this position, the Evans Gambit does not rank. Bishop takes b4. We do get to make Black's bishop move 3 times. It went to c5, to b4, to a5, and it may need to move again in order to get back into the game. So the full value for the pawn as far as compensation goes does appear to be there, and it gives black the opportunity to move the same pawn 2 times. So already black has made or wasted 4 tempi. And there's the 5th. White gets a big center and a space advantage. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this position. Black is still doing well. However, now black walks into it just a little bit with knight f6. The next move, of course, candidates for white should be seen. This is where we test ourselves, and we have to test ourselves. For the most part. I'm going to add a member over here. Sorry. What? Only accepts invitations from friends? How about CGPS team? Fair enough. Chapters. CGPS being where I teach most of the time, Monday through Friday. So yeah, black really stepped in it in this position, by the way. Really stepped in it. We'd probably just give it a question mark. That's probably the simplest. As it turns out, not one person suggested, yes, there he is, e5. Yeah, we have to take advantage of the fact that he put his knight. It is commonly known that in these positions, it's either better to gain counterplay, try to strike back with d5 with the help of knight on g to e7, or to at least seek activity with bishop g4. So any of those moves would be better. I don't know about knight on g to e7. Knight to g5 looks pretty ferocious. Maybe not knight on g to e7. But bishop to g4 certainly achieves some equality. Try to target these weaknesses. I'm going to see how long I can endure the sun here. Just because we don't get enough vitamin D. e5, yeehaw. Paul Morphy begins pushing around his not so wise opponent. But that is, of course, not the real purpose behind white's moves. Candidate moves for white. We can't really play e5 without having seen or being aware of this particular move. Bishop a3 is probably the only way to really continually take advantage of. We have the bishop preventing the king from castling. Got the pressure on f7. Knight to g5 could have also been considered. But we really don't want to exchange queens as the attacker. Not happening. The black does strike out with bishop to g4. And white does follow up with the threat of checkmate, or at least very close to checkmate in this particular position. Let's see here. Bishop takes f7, king to d7. Pawn takes pawn, threatening rook on a to d1. If bishop takes knight, it will be made on e6. So therefore, black tries to bolster his, and the center comes undone. And candidate moves for white. Nice work, Pegasus. Candidate moves for white. I prefer this music for the studies, by the way. The slightly more energetic music is for the playing time. What can we do here? We are matching wits with Paul Morphy. Says we have 4 viewers. Why is Sound Alerts listed as a viewer? Very unusual. Last call? There are, of course, 3 moves that are better than the others. The 3 moves that I would hope that everyone might consider in this position would be knight e4. After all, that's one of the reasons why we pushed e5, was to clear this square. E4 for a knight. Knight to d5 is always a favorite. But of course, with the king in the center, we want to open up lines. We do want to open up lines. Knight to g5. Why is this not an option? I have a feeling because black can try to eliminate some of the attackers. Why is knight to g5 not an option? Because the knight's not protected. Queen gets to come into the wake. It leads to the same thing. So knight g5 looks pretty good. We just keep on going. But we have to have the ability to defend our knight. That one is key. The ability to defend our knight. So e6. Blasting open the center. Black does try to hold his own. But now there are several good moves in this position too. We're going to match wits with Paul Morphy here. Some of our previous candidate moves are still good. Or a couple of our previous candidate moves are still good. I'd have to check the stream later to see how this pans out sitting in the sunlight like this, but I'm enjoying it. Birds singing in the air. Springing is sprunging. Spring is springing. Sprung is springing. All right, last call. Bishop to b5, perhaps. Not in Starkist's top 5 at the moment. Just checking to see if everybody has access to the engine. But I mean, this is just totally winning. Interestingly enough, tagging this bishop by rook to d5 is still an option. So he chooses to combine the idea of pinning the knight, as you already knew about, bishop to b5, with the other idea of tagging the bishop with a gain of time. So, how do we increase the pressure? How do we increase this pressure? I didn't start it. Good morning, Lauren. How are you? Yeah. That does look pretty fatal, though. You're absolutely right, Pegasus. Bishop to b5 with queen to b4 does look fatal. Ironically, Darkist is agreeing with Paul Morphy on all of his moves as being the absolute best. So it's difficult to look at all of the other roads that lead to Rome because there were other moves like that we did not consider here as well. All right, oh, awesome. Absolutely. So, for example, the move rook to d7 has always been a candidate. But it's not the absolute best move in this position. It's the second best move. Knight to d5 has always been a relative candidate. I'm going to go back and look at Pegasus's bishop to b5 and queen to b4 in just a moment, because the move bishop to d5, she beat Conta de Luna this morning, Rogan. That was her celebration for being COVID free. This is literally like takes, check, checkmate. Very difficult. The other move that I was also interesting to me in this position that did not get enough traction, I thought, was the move e7. Granted that we are not really threatening mate, as it turns out. But black has the ability to bring the knight back. Rook to d8 check does win the queen. It's not the most direct move in the position. Bishop to d5 did win or end the game. But I want to see Pegasus's move. He was suggesting bishop to b5. Oh, is that the problem? There's a bit of counterplay. Is that true? Hard to believe. Hard to believe that there's any counterplay here. A6, bishop, let's just say queen to b4. Oh, it's not made. No, it's not made after a6. So we have to play check, check, and then if we play queen to b4, we're still not mating so easily. We're still winning, but we're just not mated. Nice. He really is showing you no respect there, Broken, if he berserks against you. I did that this morning too. I got mated. Oh, completely unaware of how my opponent's pieces moved. So that was now Napoleon Marash, by the way, lived in New Orleans. Napoleon Marash also was famous for fabricating some of his wins over Morphy, I believe. So all of the games where Paul Morphy wins are believed to be authentic. If Morphy loses to Marash, so before he leaves for the American Chess Congress, it appears, he gives a blindfold simul, perhaps to raise funds for his forthcoming trip, or I don't know that he was ever playing chess for money, but as an exhibition. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6. Now we're really going to see what Paul Morphy thought of the Evans Gambit. All this theory. Marash even plays the best move order. Castles is frowned upon. Unfortunately, Marash tries to take Paul Morphy into a deep, dark cave where 2 + 2 equals Morphy's going to win. Black to move. Candidates for black. Yeah, right? Candidate moves for black. I'm surprised that you were, well, obviously, if you were not feeling well. Apparently, when I had COVID for the second time, apparently, I have to actually go to work on this. The fever was brutal. 24 hours under the weather. I might have missed the Saturday morning stream. No, I think I got up. I did the stream, went back to bed, buried myself under the covers, got up, did the Sunday morning stream. Stream must go on. Black to move in this particular position. Black to move. Run for the board screaming. How do you take your hamburgers, Lauren? So, do you have a cell phone? Oh, Kentucky Fried Chicken is better in other countries. You guys are so lucky. No, I'm serious. Kentucky Fried Chicken is better in Trinidad. Oh, the chicken. It's very fresh. They take it from local farms. And they also spice it up in Trinidad. Oh, it's healthier, I swear, in other countries than it is in the United States. Easily healthier. All right, black, everybody, back on task. Knight on G to E7. I'm very disappointed in knight on G to E7. Now, the real idea here is to bop white right in the snooze, right in the schnoz, with D5. This move is the silver bullet. I have not mentioned the silver bullet on stream, as it is politically correct in incorrect in my school. No, 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 Lord, no, that's not even a real burger. McDonald's is not real. That's not real food. I don't think they even use local vendors in McDonald's. They ship everything from pre-processed plants. I am not that much of a health nut, but I do care about my body and yours enough to go on a smidgen of a health rant against certain fast foods. In Australia, everything, I believe that. I will check it out. I will do the research. I remember it was a ridiculous amount of money for a Whopper in Norway. I don't believe there are any McDonald's in Norway. In the United States, unfortunately, many fast foods are associated with slum areas. So KFC is usually not in the poor neighborhoods. They have other chicken establishments that are very good, obviously, perhaps even better than KFC that are in the other neighborhoods. But they tend to stay away from them. But McDonald's is everywhere where they take advantage of. That's good. Good to know. Good to have a small country with integrity. I'm actually reading a book right now, The Way of Integrity. I'm going to have to read it two times though, because my mind is always racing while I'm trying to process what's going on. So D5. The only move here for white, really, to save and to hold his position is E takes D6 en passant. And only now do we get knight on G to E7 in. And black goes for it. Well, interestingly enough, Lauren, Pegasus, you're a VIP. You can post a link. Believe it or not. VIPs and mods can post links. Checking it out. Now I need to view it in English. Flatbread roll. Yeah, this reminds me of a few places that we have here in the United States. Nicely done. These are recipes. Quick dinner. Nice. I'll forward this to my wife. This is not a delivery site. At first, when I saw it, I thought it was a delivery site. Candidates for black in this position, I believe. Am I looking for candidates for black? Let me just check. Nah. We're just going to castle right into it. How about that? We're not looking for candidates for black. No, but it's a lot like Puzzle Streak or Puzzle Rush or whatever you choose to do. You really do have to apply yourself in every given position and try to adapt. It improves your chess IQ. Improve your chess IQ by always trying to find moves. Now, white has a choice between Queen H5, Bishop D3, and simply, bolstering the center with C takes D4. So Mirage chooses bishop d3, which runs into bishop f5. And goes for the win of material. Fortunately, the bishop on f8 is not as valuable as that knight on g5. Now he's got the ability to cross and cover. Candidates for black. More than one good move in this particular position. Recipes for children. Forwarding this to my family. Real quick, sorry. So he chooses rook on a to d8. This is, I'm sorry, rook to d8. Definitely, Lauren is circling that one, absolutely. We need to activate every last piece. And this is the mark of a good player. We already have said this one before. We haven't done our rooks in a while, but the stronger player gets the rooks to the squares better. This is very well exemplified here and in other places. The white tries to pin the knight on f5. This doesn't stop another knight from coming in, and he tries to keep the knight pinned. And now, candidates for black. Oh, I take that back. I believe it was Arnaud de Rivere who had the forged wins over Morphy. I don't think it was Mirage. I can't remember if it was Napoleon Mirage. With a name like Napoleon, he's highly suspect. Pegasus, it is time. There's a free queen on e4. Free queen. Okay, maybe it's not a free queen. Crazy, huh? What is that move? It is, mate. This is Morphy at his finest, to be honest. That Doppert. Oh, these are recent Master games, so Morphy would not be in this one. I should review this really lovely book by Dennis Asanko and Anastasia Sorokina, The Life and Games of a Legend. Kuprechek, Greg at Chess for Less in Miami. I believe that the correct make sure that that website is correct. Yes, Chess for Less. Greg, I bought this from Greg in Miami. He was reading this book in the book display. At the amateur team championship. And it's just like such a lovely book. There are nice pictures and photographs as well of the Kuprechek family and his upbringing. Although at the moment there's a little bit of a moratorium. Oh, here's Victor Kuprechek being observed by Boris Spassky, I believe. Sorry, on this side. Boris Spassky standing over Kuprechek's board, observing his game. 10th world champion watches the play of the young master as the young Victor Kuprechek readies his f-pawn for the attack. Justina? That's a very clever photo with him and his daughter over here. I love that one. Uh-oh, wait a minute, 1 second. A little bit of moisture there. I don't know if it was because I accidentally spat. I'm going to make sure that it's not on the photo. I try to take care of my books to the best of my ability. There's a training session with Victor Kortsnoy. Training session with, there's photos of him with Petrosian, Stahl, Iliovsky. He had a match against Spassky. Anyway, lovely book. Absolutely. The Maestro from Minsk, Belarus. He's not from Russia. He's from Belarus. How is that even possible? Well, you pick up the knight and you move it 2 squares up and over. Sorry, Lord, that's what I tell my youngsters is they often want a hint, and I go, the knight moves in an L-shaped fashion. So I could see one of my students looking at this position and asking me for a hint, and I would say the knight moves in an L-shaped pattern. That would be my hint, whenever it's a knight move. They're like, no, we know that. That's not a hint. But it is. But it is a hint. The knight moves in an L-shaped pattern. We're going to move on to De Rivere. Morphy. This was in Paris. Maybe it was Mirage, because I believe that the games took place when he beat Morphy in 1859. But this is Paris 1863. So did he return to Paris? This is just such an unusual year for him to be playing chess, because it's past his 2 to 3 year lifespan. I'm going to have to look into it. In any event, Arnaud de Rivere. And here we get to see Paul Morphy essaying the 2 knights defense. Three moves for black.
Dad, Mom's getting the 845.
She's getting the 845.
Yes,
okay.
she would like to. So guess what? Anakin doesn't have school today. Kid in his class got COVID.
No.
I know. But at the same time, David will get to see him this week.
That's cool.
So that's cool. It's just tricky because Wednesday I'm meeting a band to do their merch. Do you mind if I tell you really quick?
No, not at all. I was just seeing if...
Yeah, so Wednesday I'm meeting a band to do their merch, right? I have my day off. I'm now getting every 2 weeks, so I actually have the day off on Wednesday.
Right.
And now I have to have Anakin, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I'm meeting them at the venue they're playing this weekend, and it's a bar. I can't bring a 3-year-old to a bar, so I'm going to have to find a sitter, I think, for the Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm meeting them at like noon, though, so I'm going to tell them,
Right.
well, at least the drummer, because that's like a friend of mine, and like be like, is it closed? Is it open? Like, could I bring him? And then if not, I'll probably have like Mikey, Harry, babysit him.
I might need you to bring up the other chair.
Well, I can't do that today, but which one? The green one?
I'll take the green one.
The green one's nice.
I'll take the green one.
It's just the blue one looks good down there, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's why if we bring up the green one, I'll help you with it right now. But basically, this chair is flopping. I don't know if this one needs to be tightened, but if I'll take this one downstairs, then
how about you just come down like 5 minutes before go to get Mom and we could bring it up. Unless you want to do it right this second.
I'm going to get Mom? Where
going
is she?
to drop Mom, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Got it.
Okay, yeah. I had to come back home and get school tablet because he has school this week, just virtual. And
Rogan says that he was the coolest 3-year-old in the bar at the time.
oh,
He's in New Zealand. What luck for Anakin.
I know. I'm hoping like it'll be okay. I'm hoping I can just bring him with because it'll be daytime.
No, I don't think so. Oh, it's daytime.
Yeah, I'm meeting them at noon.
Yeah, usually after 7 p.m.
Yeah.
is when those things.
And like it's, I don't know. I mean, it's not like I'm going to drink with my friends and I'm bringing a 3-year-old. You know.
Yeah, don't do that. That would be bad.
Well,
I mean.
Thanks for the advice.
No, Rogan,
I had no
by
idea.
the way, Rogan is from New Zealand.
Hi, Rogan. I know I'm so tall. You guys can't see me when I'm standing.
I know. I'm thinking we should bring up another chair just so that people can sit down while they talk.
Yeah, right.
Because everybody's like towering over. And so we're watching the Lord of the Rings, and I'm telling my wife that it was filmed in New Zealand.
This is pretty cool, actually.
That is a great cover, right?
That's awesome.
The Iron Man cover.
With like a Viking symbol on the chest.
On the chest, yeah, instead of the glowing Iron
whatever.
Man thing.
That's cool.
Right?
Yeah. All right, I gotta go get our stuff together.
Message me on WhatsApp. I'm keeping an eye on it. So, let's finish up. Just give your 3. I'll let her know, Lord. Sunglasses and a clipboard, and he'll be fine. I wonder if I can copy that. Put it in our family chat. So where are we? Exactly. I wanted to mention that if you include my name in the @ sign, then the Streamlabs makes a sound for me to notice that you were addressing me directly, which is a very cool thing. There's a little click that I hear when there's a message directly to me. You know, and I also like knight to d4 in this position, honestly. I like knight to d4. Knight a5 is the move that Morphy played. So, yeah, Lauren, I put it in the chat since I wasn't sure you left.
This today?
Huh?
Because I have to bring 3 electrons.
Sure, let me just check to see if there's any.
Do you have anything slightly smaller than that? Or?
No, this is the one that I used to travel with. Wireless charger.
Oh, could I have that?
Yeah.
Oh, I could put it in my room. That'd be good.
Society mask. Yeah, no, this is actually quite a good bag to take anything of anywhere of any type.
Yeah, because I'm bringing the new stroller, which doesn't, so I'll have to actually carry this stuff. So I want it to be safe.
No, this is a very lightweight bag. And
Yeah,
I don't think
no.
I have anything in it. Hopefully nothing
Yeah, because I have
embarrassing.
to bring my computer because they're sending me the designs over.
Yeah, Lauren
Merch
says just give him a
designs.
clipboard and sunglasses and he'll be fine. He'll blend. I forget what these things are. Phoenix, old business cards, yada yada yada. There's my silver Sharpies. This is the one that I usually took to tournaments.
Right. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get
back.
I want to get a backpack.
Yeah.
Backpack one. This one.
Backpack one indeed.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Yes. And B5 transposes, by the way, to the knight D4 line. B5, knight to D4, D3 line. Objectively, this is better for white. It's very tricky and tedious. There are a lot of nice tactical options. I think the game Berliner, Estrin Berliner was the famous world champion correspondence game in that line. They call it the Fritz Olstad variation. So we've got the Fritz variation, and then we've got the Olstad variation. So one of my favorites is, and many of my students, including my daughter who won that large trophy in the corner, my youngest daughter, she actually had this quite a bit. Her most notable story, I think, in this particular line, she's won this game in a variety of ways over time. Very force trapped to a certain extent. People often go for it, so I would definitely recommend it for the when you're playing against a much lower rated player. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the knight d4. You're probably going to win no matter what you play. However, you do have to be mindful of queen e4 check, nice, but third best. Aha. So yeah, just to finish up, we got Mad Quick Chess, MQC. I didn't give him a shout out the last time I had a chance. The streamer, the poker player, the beast, the Mad Quick Chess moderator of VIPs. Yes, indeed. Mad Quick Chess, yes. Andrew now lives in Austin and he plays at Johnny Chan's poker room. He teaches chess. Oh, Houston. I apologize. I slipped because D.G. Rhodes' brother used to live in Austin, so I was thinking of him. No, Johnny Chan is out of business? Just like that? What happened? Oh, the robbery? Poker has now taken over our stream. Not to worry, though. I like it when people have the conversations. Good morning, DG. How are you? So yeah, we've had a lot of success. Jessica had one opponent who played knight e5. And after queen e4 check, she said that she had a long think in this position as to whether or not she should take the free win with queen c2, but it looks like Starkist believes in her. Queen takes e5 is better, even though she could be up a queen. And she was gambling on her scholastic opponent, not knowing that they cannot move their f-pawn. And of course, she checkmated him in this fashion. But it is the third best move, yeah. Bishop g4. I'm going to check it out. 1 second. There is that option. Yes. Bishop g4. Hold the phone. We're rolling the tape. Trying to recall. Yeah. I'm trying to recall if this is what was going on, because I usually show this in a different variation. If they don't take the rook, queen to c6. Yeah, this variation. I usually show it in this variation because it leads to forced mate. Literally winning the queen and forcing everything to a certain extent. Is there another move? Is there anything that one can do? Oh yeah, it's this one. Sorry, I apologize. And after bishop takes f3, if they try to save the queen, then it's mate. But knight takes e5 stops that variation. So it's very, very tricky. Do you think that bishop to b4 check on d3? So if d3, I guess you can throw it in at any time. Uh-oh. It is time for me to take a quick break. All right, hon, I'm on my way. I will be right back. I'm going to leave it in this position for just a moment. Sometimes I put it on TV. Let me just run. I'll be right back. Give me 10. I'll leave the earbuds. EG Road VIP in the house. Continue chatting amongst yourselves. Sorry. The breeze coming through. Oh, that was good, everybody. That was good. So here we are. Morphy versus Arnaud de Riviere. Uh-oh. Fortunately, we have a backup pair of glasses. I think I left my glasses in the car. Oh, no, I didn't. Let's swap out the glasses. Matt, quick chats, exactly. Oh, what did I miss? Sorry. Cheers, Matt, quick chats. Good to see you, Andrew. Yeah, I prefer Atlantic City on average. DG Road usually goes to Parks, and I'm looking forward to trying to go to Parks. Having a lot of great conversations, inadvertently or indirectly, with Alan Kessler on Twitter. Saratoga. We have the New York State Scholastic Chess Championships coming up this weekend. I have to figure out how to do my streams from Saratoga. Texas has other drawbacks, unfortunately, like Senator Cruz and other things, but what can you do? What is the best move today? The best move today is the old standby. Easily the best move in the position. Let me just check what Stockfish gives. Stockfish gives b5 as better. Stockfish gives b5 as better than knight to d4 in a sense because of knight takes d5. Whoop, hold on one second. I'm going to let it sit for a moment as we discuss it. Yes, he is. It is not a tournament without DG Road. How long has it been since you've been in New York, Mad Quick? I know you've been there for a while, but last time I was in Houston was 2009, maybe? We're in Maryland. Poker in Maryland. Let alone 1,000. Ah. Merry Christmas. So where are we here? So b5, I let it run for a little while, and now Darkist is torn between queen takes d5, which I believe is standard. Queen d5, knight c3, queen c5. And the traditional way of dealing with this, with knight to d4, c3, and then knight takes d5. It believes that both of those are equally good for what they're worth over the move. Knight to d5. And a Happy New Year. Happy Lunar New Year, most recently. Rogan Joe Sloan. We have to give those guys another quick shout out here. MUC and RJS. Just to let them know how much they're loved. But yeah, I'm gonna have to consider. Maryland is still too far for me, but I would consider it on the way. I'm interested only in poker tournaments for the most part. The best move for white, of course, is bishop to b5. Ernest de Rivere goes with d3, and we go with the traditional overworking of the center. I think the model game here was played by Marshall against Shallop way back when. Marshall would throw in, wow, that would be awesome if they could move it to National Harbor in Maryland. That would be amazing. Yeah, Marshall liked to throw in bishop to b4, but bishop to c5 is more direct without having to hope for or trying to encourage c3. h3. Ernest de Rivere is on the ball here. That's amazing. Now black to move. Candidate moves for black in this position. Remember, you're not looking for the best move. You're just trying to gather together all the possibilities here for black in this position. All of the possibilities for black in this position. Am I going to get through all of these games, or only 5? Just when I thought I was going to get through all of these games. Derailed slightly by my trip to the train station, among other conversations. The Lichess Masters database has nothing on this position. Whereas in Lichess, it's been played 162 times. By the way, following along on your own boards is optimal, increasing the interactivity of the lesson rather than very passive learning. But the only other way we can get very active learning out of this is by participating. And participating means thinking and involving yourself as much as you can. Passive income crypto. Very passive lately, although I think it's making a slow climb back. c6, b5, absolutely. e3 also to be considered. Morphy plays a rather questionable knight h7, and white is certainly better after knight h7. So one really does have to consider the more direct breaking down of white's center and the quick development, and as I've already mentioned, the 3 ways of dealing with the center. You're either attacking the center, holding the center, or giving up the center. Those are my 3 preferred ways of handling the center in that order of priority. E3 and B5. So B5, of course, relatively equal, even chances for both sides. I told Alex 96 GM, Alex GM 96. Was he born in 96? He looked old enough to have been born in 96. And of course, the last move in this position, which is also equal, with relatively equal chances for both sides, is e3. And of course, white ends up with a pawn on this square at the end because of the threat of rook to e8. However, bishop c5, h3, castles, knight h2, Paul Morphy chooses knight h7. We can't fault him. After all, it was 1863. How could he not have access to a database, right? Now this position is relatively level. Morphy goes for the assault on the king with the pawns. And white really asks him to prove what he's got with the move queen to takes e4. And at this very moment, of course, white has a few choices that are better because white should be holding on, but he chooses perhaps easily the worst possibility. This position. Get our nameplate back up there. Candidate moves for black. 150 New Zealand dollars. $150 New Zealand dollars, I imagine, is equal to $50 US. Because that's about what it's costing me to fill up my tank at the moment. My Pathfinder. I have a Nissan Pathfinder. Very large tank. It's between $50 and $60 to fill it up. Bishop takes h3. Perfectly reasonable. Absolutely. Solid move. More candidates. Knight f3, indeed. Wow, 102 US dollars. So it's so a New Zealand dollar is 66 cents to the New Zealand dollar. Roughly 60, 70 cents or so. So here we are, and Pegasus was right on it with the move knight f3 check, queen h4. Life is going to be very difficult, as we just have to send the right piece in first. King is not getting away, because we have queen to g5 check if the king thinks he can possibly get away. And of course, after the move, bishop to d2, candidate moves for black. I have to make up for some time. Indeed. High stakes poker stream. Followed. I don't know why I didn't get that one last time. I do follow on Friday evenings. You will find me on most occasions, if I am able to follow poker, you'll find me in the live at the bike. Do this. Now I can hear you. I did not hear the bell go off. I did hear the bell go off. It was just very faint. Yes, I've also watched The Hustlers. Yeah. But The Hustler is on YouTube. Live at the Bike is on Twitch, so I have a better chance of finding it. Look on A to E8, perfectly reasonable. But I also want everyone to be completely aware that white's intention is to bother the daylights out of this pawn, so we're going to do rook to f6. Rook on a to e8, in theory, according to Starkist, is a better move. But matching wits with Paul Morphy is never easy, as we have the opportunity to defend and attack at the same time. Let's say rook on a to e1, rook g6. The only way out of this particular mess is queen takes g7 check. That doesn't really live for long. Rook to e8 check. They can stave it off, but it's basically just checkmate on the next move. Very unfortunate. Ooh. Forgot about the ice skating party tonight. The school ice skating party. Interesting. Puts my lesson plans in danger. After rook on f to e8, it was already O-1. Rook on a to e8, though, does get the clam. Let's get one more in. I'm going to leave that one up for a moment while I find my next game. Little known games. Yeah, let's go for it. Go for a couple of games with Morphy as white. We are borrowing from the miniatures book provided by Chess Informant. I know, right? Imagine being that good. Give Informant a plug. If you wish to buy the miniatures or miniatures 2 books, I highly recommend them. They are amazing. There's amazing material for lessons in both of these. It's like ridiculous, fresh stuff. Did you ever want something to look at for the most part? Charlie and Coors walking outside. That's a good big dog. First dog I met in the neighborhood, I believe. So here we are, Paul Morphy. Now remember, Paul Morphy adjusts his openings based on his opponents. So playing f4, the third best move in the position, in theory. But I think it's actually the fourth best move. You have bishop c4, knight c3, and knight f3 that are better. d4, of course, leading to possible Danish gambits, scoring gambits, things like that. Knight f3 and g5. This was all the rage in those days. Paul Morphy goes for a very, very serious gambit. We're not here to criticize or comment on the opening quite as much. Good morning, Paul. 1e4. How are you? No, but I mean, that was against a couple of amateurs. The Opera House game, I believe that he was easily 2,500 strength. And his opponents were not necessarily 2,500 strength. There is a great book, Ratings of Chess Players Past and Present, which is worth checking out. I believe it was written by Arpad Elo. Definitely out of print. I do not have a copy of that particular book. I used to have a copy of that particular book. Oh my God. Thank you, sir, for the World Champion study. I want to make sure it's in my rewards queue. 1992, Fisher Spassky. So 97, we can probably give that move a little bit of a question mark, as it is now white to move and win for the most part. Not really. Is it? Bishop takes f4. Bishop takes f4. And then we will do candidates for white. It's quite obvious what the move could be. Has this position ever occurred among the masters? As I check the database, no. Yes, that is the key move in this position. There are only two moves in this position. Queen takes f4 and bishop takes f7 check. FIDE Grand Prix has started indeed. Bishop takes f7 check. We're finishing a reward request queue for Pegasus on Morphy. And he just asked for the 1992 World Championship. Add that to this page. Good when it's in the reward request queue. Obviously, we have to respect the sacrifice by accepting it, and it is, of course, game over. Not that easy to put that game on. Birmingham must have been a major chess center, as part of the World Chess Championship of 1886 was played in Birmingham, Alabama. Morphy Littleton, e4, e5, f4. E takes f4, knight f3. d5. Not sure what's going on. h4. Paul Morphy is playing better theory now in 1858. I don't know what he was thinking about against Gonby. Gonby was not a blindfold simul that we know of. It's all relative mainline theory, as played even in the Masters database 118 times. All mainline theory, to a certain extent. Well, I take that back. Bishop g3 and queen g5 are commonly played by 2600s, 2400s, 2300s. Among the 18 games in the Lead Chess database. However, bishop takes f2 if one could consider this of such a move. He really is after that e4 pawn. Well, you can have it. Black bites. Bishop to b5 check. Candidates for white. Are we in the knockout stage in the FIDE Grand Prix yet? Not unlike my sports playoffs, I usually don't always pay such close attention until playoff time. So when we're in the single elimination knockout stage with the matches, because you get so many draws in the qualifiers, it's just like brutal. Like, do these players really want to qualify? Terrible. This move is not that hard to find. A matchbook. Yeah, this is my new jacket for the spring. I cannot wait. It is 60 degrees outside. I hope it stays this way for the remainder of the day. They've got our manhole cover open. What's up with that? I wonder if they're going to be doing something. All right. I'm not sure if I got the reference. Detective reference. TV tropes. Please find the matchbook used to set the fire to the victim. One of the officers thinks this might be the clue that breaks the case open. Find dazzling artwork in a dazzling variety of shapes and sizes. It is true. That's right. That way you know where to go. Yeah, I believe that my favorite show, as far as recent shows anyway, was The Mentalist. I think it was 7 or 8 seasons. Quite good. Every episode very entertaining. If anything, I definitely perhaps borrowed my affinity for wearing a jacket from Patrick Jane. If anything. Because you don't necessarily need to wear a tie with a jacket in order to enjoy the moment. Nobody on the moves here? No candidate moves? Anyone? Anyone? Oh, Endgame. What is that on? Is it on Hulu or Netflix? Oh, yes. It's featuring one of my favorite actresses from Army Wives, and she was also in Deadpool. Super hot. It's on my list. Thank you for reminding me. Maybe I'll move that one into the slot today. I will move that one into the slot today. We may do the full 3 hours here on this particular one because I shorted the U.S. Championship Brilliancies because I had to start I don't remember if I had to start an arena, so I attempted to do it before I started an arena. Maybe before the Saturday Swiss, I did the U.S. Championship Brilliancies. Hulu, got it. Yes, indeed. I watch Hulu regularly. A Million Little Things has me. I'm not a This Is Us kind of a guy, but A Million Little Things does appeal to me. You need a better mix of ethnicities for me to watch a show on average. How I Met Your Father is absolutely atrocious. There was another one featuring, I don't know if it was a Netflix miniseries or if it was a movie about the Cold War guy who's a professor who was dragged into playing a chess match. A little contrived, of course. Pegasus indeed with the win. Rook h5, bringing the game to a close. And now, of course, we only have one move. This is the only move I knew about. Stockfish believes in bishop e6, rook g5, queen g6, but bishop to f5. White now has a better move. White now has a better move. Candidates for white. By the way, Rogan is responsible for the YouTube presentation. I definitely am going to give him many, many more kudos for the YouTube editing and the presentation and the thumbnails. Amazing work, sir. I cannot wait to give it even more attention. Morphy does play the best move here, which is not the natural move. One would assume that the natural move is a candidate move, but there is a better move. Two better moves, in fact. Than the natural move. In fact, the natural move isn't even mentioned by Stockfish at all. Quite crazy. What to do in this position? Remember, you're not trying to find the best move. You're just trying to wrap up and hope that your move is among the candidates for the best possible move. You'd think that it's rook takes f5, right? You'd think that it might be rook to g5 check, right? But no, it's queen to d2, just threatening to do a 1-2 maneuver on black. Queen to d2, and also with the latent threat of bringing the rook in, locking down on this square, not allowing any counterplay there. So basically, I gave it away. As after the move f6, then rook to e1. And after the move that was played in the game, bishop to g6, rook to e1, forced black's resignation as well. You know what? This game is not in my database. Let me make sure I save this game into my database. Chapter. I'll get rid of the that for a moment. A new program version is available. Would you like to upgrade now? Just base 16, version 13. Sure. Alright, meanwhile, back at the ranch. 9:42. Don't mind the sounds in the background. Morphy. Budzinski. Do we have Budzinski? 1 second. No, we only have Meek Morphy, Morphy Meek, Duke, Morphy versus the Duke, and Morphy versus No Name. We do not have Budzinski Morphy. Morphy versus the Russian. Paris 1854. What is that year all about? I have to question some of these years. 1854. He was 11 years old. Could he have been in Paris in 1854? No, he wasn't. He was born in 1837, so he was 16 years old. 16 or 17 years old, depending on the time of this game. But he's also black. E4, E5. And now we have the Bishop's Gambit. New movie? No, it is a Hulu series, by the way. You have to start another series, Rogan? I don't know. Million Little Things is kind of soppy. I like it a lot. The Cleaning Lady, also on Hulu. The Cleaning Lady is only 1 season, but it is very gripping. What else? Hulu is doing Endgame, by the way. Endgame is the detective saga. Oh, need to do another one. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm almost there. I'm getting there. Candidates for black. Did we do that already? Candidates B. Now, objectively, there are 3 moves that are better than the commonly played move in this position, according to Starkist. Starkist apparently does not agree with the standard move in this position. What you get when you have an engine checking everything. Two questions per game from here on out. Bishop e7 would be the Hanham defense, I believe. Going for bishop h4 check. Not in the top 5. I would definitely do that. 5-minute monologue. What I want to do is how best to use Lichess, how to customize Lichess, how to approach studying chess. Absolutely. How to approach thinking in chess. And I love doing everything live. I love the interaction with the chat. So the standard move in this position is d5. And Stockfish believes that this is absolutely equal. Like this, if you want to equalize with black, you have no better move than the move d5, which is what Morphy played. However, Darkist believes black is just better after the move Queen h4 check. And the king has to be unsettled, and we can actually start our day. Developing our pieces here. I believe that this is the game Anderson Kizaritsky, for the most part. Anderson Kizaritsky, he was on it. But Paul Morphy did go with d5. Bishop takes d5, knight f6. Knight c3, bishop to b4. All the very best and most popular moves. d3, not the best move. And now we're just going to recapture our pawn, right? Or are we? Or are we just going to use the open file? Are we? Queen f3, as advertised, rook on f to e8, or rook to e8, and g to e2. Might as well ruin his pawn structure while we're at it. Ruin his king safety while we're at it. Surveying a large piece of land to the left of my house. That's why I'm distracted every now and then, so sorry, I'm looking out the window. It is quite crazy. And now, of course, if white were to play the move Queen f2, the position would be totally equal, but of course he's going to risk it all. Queen f2. Equal chances. g3, on the other hand, not so great. Candidates for black. Fire this one up. Black to move. Definitely have to do more on Fischer. I believe, let's see how much material I have in this one book. And the winner is Bishop g4, as pointed out by Pegasus. There is no recovering from the danger to the knight on e2. G takes h4, bishop takes f3, and it is lights out. I'd be very tempted to play rook takes e2. But bishop takes e2 is direct enough. So we did... And that was Budzinski. We're about to do Schulten Morphy. Make sure I haven't done that one already. New York. I'll put blindfold first. $18.57. Now, again, queen to h4. Certainly, possibly best move. Close some windows here just to see if that is what's causing the lag on my computer. So, in this particular position, we have not yet done a Nimzovich study yet. Nimzovich is way overdue. E5, D5 is pretty standard, all in black's favor. So rather than doing that, Schulten actually plays knight c3, as Nepomniachtchi would play. Let somebody break into the house while I'm streaming and I can't hear them and they rob me blind. Would not hear them at all. So, we're following the game Nepomniachtchi, Aronian. Now, Nepomniachtchi, Aronian played c6, which is probably the best move. Nepomniachtchi did not beat Aronian in that game, playing this particular gambit. Peter Heine-Nilsson on the black side of this, up until that last move. Jakob Murray, Peter Heine-Nilsson, 2006. Bishop to b5 check was played by Jacob Murray. Princev played bishop to b5 check, and Reinderman, who drew his game, took on d6 against Jonathan Parker. Not sure if I know Jonathan Parker. I imagine that he's an English player. D takes f6 is thought to be less than best. We need to check bishop e6, and certainly black is better. We're still following two master games in the Lee Chess database. Neither of them played Schulten's move a3. One played knight f3. Perfectly reasonable. Dmitry Reinderman, Grandmaster Dmitry Reinderman played knight f3. He did not win with the white piece. And the other game was played with queen e4. Not sure how useful this one is, as black can still just play knight c6, queen. What is that? Right? Oh, rook takes g7. Also good for black. Close that window that was just opened. So on knight f3, what is the best move? Tough call. Probably rook takes g7 as well. Even though Jonathan Parker didn't play that, he fared okay. But a3, well, interesting. Best I can do. If I'm going to say that it's not an outright error. Queen h4 check is still the best possible move. Now white really compounds his difficulties with knight e4. Candidate moves for black. Pop open another. I tell you, hydrate, then defeat the purpose of the hydrating by caffeinating. I have plenty of material on Nimzovich, both that I've used and that I've not used. Pegasus, pounding away. Removing those defenders. With knight to d4, indeed. Other moves might have been, obviously we have to safeguard our bishop, perhaps. One way or the other, safeguarding the bishop, whether we put it on d4, e7, b6, doesn't really matter. Knight to d4. But while we're at it, queen h4 check. The counter-attacking move of the day serves its purpose. Candidates for black. Especially love having Pegasus here for it. It is what I prefer. We did the 6-hour Carlson stream. Boy, did I run out of gas around the 4-hour mark. That was not easy. I would like to redo that Pegasus, that 6-hour Carlson stream when I'm plenty rested. The reason I quiz on this particular move is because even though one particular move may be obvious, there are other natural moves that definitely have to be considered in this position that also lead to a much better game for black, if not clearly better. So the moves that I'm referring to, of course, are castles and rook takes g7, but of course the move that was played by Paul Morphy is the overworking of the queen with c takes d3. Queen has a difficult time staying on the d file after queen takes d3 and rook to d8. Candidates for black. It is interesting that Morphy's move is not necessarily the best move. We're trying to improve on Morphy. I'm gonna have to write those titles down. I know it's not, a minute doesn't seem like enough, but we're trying to streamline the process of finding good moves. Streamlining the process of finding good moves. So for example, moves that appeal to me are both bishop to g4 and bishop to c4. Other moves that have to be considered are simply rook takes g7. Stockfish's moves, very different from Paul Morphy. Paul Morphy actually played rook to d1 check, decoying the queen not just once, but twice, just to lure him in to the fact that he might be losing this game. Attack back up, and basically after queen e2, bishop e2, f5, we have a very severe problem on the f2 square. And it was, of course, after rook to d1 check that white resigned. White did resign after rook to d1 check. However, for those of you that were really looking deep into this position, f3 was the move that I had not really considered. And I've looked at these games a lot, one way or the other. Quite incredible, honestly. We've done 9. I want to make sure we did the other one. Did we do the other one? Yes, we did. We have only one game left to add to our study for an even 14, or 10 games today. That game is, I believe, against Anderson. Probably the most famous miniature. Apparently this one is not in my database, but I have a hard time believing this. I should say it's not in my database of... We've got match game number 1, match game number 3, and this is match game number 9 in Paris in 1858. Morphy is white in all of these games. I wonder why this game is not in my database. Why have I not yet used this in an after-school class while I've owned this book? That is the question. When I have used these in the classroom, I have a lot of earmarkings that I do on the written games in the books. I treat them like textbooks. We've got post-it notes all over the place. Yep, it is. Candidate moves for white. Candidate moves for white. Now, this is a position, everybody knows what I believe my favorite move is. C4 is perhaps the topical move in a similar position without the knight on C6. Interestingly enough, C4 is a topical move without the knight on C6. The three popular moves of which, hold on here, I'm going to check the lead chess database as well. C4 is perhaps the most popular move in the lead chess database. It's the fourth most popular move. Bishop E3, knight to C3, and the move that I would play every single time because I was raised on Karpov and Kasparov in the 1980s. Is knight to B5, and black has to play D6. And then bishop F4, E5, bishop E3. Bishop F4 is by far not the best move in this position. Personally, it is C4 at this moment because we've actually fixed that pawn in a way that it cannot do anything. And Akopian Kramnik perhaps might be the best, most recent example of this. That game went knight F6, knight on 1 to C3, A6. I believe that Garry Kasparov's novelty in this position. See if I can find it. Garry Kasparov's novelty still a good move here. I remember an early D5, which we've discussed. But I don't see it. Maybe it happens a little bit later on. In any event, Bishop F4 was also a move that was played by Bobby Fischer, interestingly enough. And after E5, Bishop E3, the opponents usually went right back into Scheveningen territory with knight F6, knight on 1 to C3, and then A6. But Anderson goes all out with the move F5. Knight on 1 to C3, F4, I believe. Claudia? I feel like I hear someone in the house. Let me do candidate moves for white in this position. Even though this position is pretty self-explanatory, and I'm just going to check the front door. I figured out what it was. Can't really hear it here, but I can hear it. I actually thought that too. I thought if I don't come back and I have like a 24-hour stream as somebody needs to find my body somewhere, you know? No, it was the neighbor's dog barking at the survey guys. That's what it is. The survey guys are wearing the orange, like street worker type uniform, and I'm pretty sure that it's bothering Coors. Oh, yeah, exactly. That also bothers me, the subway stabbings. But yeah, I'm sensitive to Coors. Of course, the best move in this position. All in, indeed. However, the move, of course, is knight to d5. And we are threatening almost checkmate. This is not my favorite game. That's why I have never used this one in a lesson. Not in a classroom, anyway. And on b to c7, this could be an immediate mate after king to d7. Oh. Let's delete that. Could be an immediate mate. Kids love that. On the other hand, Paul Morphy does not necessarily find the best move here. Of the three moves in this position, he plays the move that leads to equality. F takes e3. The move that Paul Morphy played was queen f3 check. But of course, the best move is just to take the rook. On the other hand, queen f3 check is going to require some help from our opponent. Definitely going to require some help from our opponent. Knight f6, pretty logical. Bishop c4, if we're going to continue down this path. And now Anderson puts the question to White's queen. Candidates for White. We're wrapping this one up before we can move on to our other streams. I really have not done this whole section on in ChessBase. Requires some study, that's for sure. And I try to study very much like I teach, basically looking for candidate moves, trying to open my eyes to new possibilities, considering everything that is going on in order to broaden my chess vision. March 20th, my next major event with one of our fellow MVPs, legend of the stream. Legend of the stream. I see why that I might have ended the stream one day. The button for the timer is remarkably close to the end stream button. That would be bad. So yeah, knight takes f6 is check. We do not have to move our queen. Legends. I'm very happy that DG Road is a VIP in case it needs to post a link to anything. As we've noticed that the way around the The way around most of it is to whisper any links that need to be shared for proofing either through a mod or a VIP. And after knight to f6 check, black only really has one move if he wants to retain a fighting chance. Bishop takes d5 check. And now black has a choice between going to only 2 squares. Blocking or interposing is not really an option if we want to keep up the attack on the queen. And he chooses wrongly, of course. He should play king e7 and the game might end in a draw. He chose king to g6, and now we get to figure out what is the best way to put him away. WCK. Oh, yes, the World Central Kitchen. I did share that before. I also retweeted it. But he was also trying to vet charity contributions, as well as I was when I was going to do my donation day. If I had done it on March 1st. The one I'm most impressed with is Ben Feingold's 25K. I think he's up to 14K now. He's not going to stop his donation drive. What was wrong with queen takes d5? Well, we'll answer that in just one moment. Was there anything wrong with that? That is a good question. Queen takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes f3, g takes f3. Good question. So the move in question here, though, is very difficult to find, but it does the job. Basically, after queen h5 check, king f6, we get to open up the lines for the rook. Then after avoiding any further checks, the rook is just coming to f1 to finish the job. But what was wrong with queen takes d5? Queen takes d5, knight on f takes d5, knight f3 check, g takes f3, e takes f2, king takes f2, and the rook is still hanging, right? Looks better for white, just in general. But why and how much better for white is it? So we're up a pawn, and the rook can save itself. Darkest. Just better for white. The two knights, just better for white. Interesting. They're a little bit sketchy though, I have to admit. These two knights are stepping on each other, so I don't blame you for being concerned about this. I need to save the chapter PGN. Do I have chess base open in the background? 1 second, make sure of this. I do. Before I click on that, need to update chess base. And we did all 10 games. That's crazy for this study. We did all 10 games. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Thank you, Pegasus. I can't believe we did it. I'm going to put up a round of... woo, as well. The difference between the two applause is that one is slightly longer than the other for 10 or 15 bits. Pretty cool. While I exit stage left here, open that one. We are going to be going to my dear old friend who absolutely has the loveliest voice in the world. I almost wish I had the voice. Alexandra. Thank you, everyone. Stay on the Elite Chess main page. Looks much better that way. This is also the Puzzle Streak page. It is the Puzzle Streak page, as I do a Puzzle Streak every single day if I can remember to. Cheers, everyone. Thank you, MD Knight, Zero, DG Road for being here. Mad Quick Chess, Rogan, Paul 1E4. I know Paul 1E4 will approve. If you have not already followed Mad Quick Chess or the bristling humor of Rogan Joe Sloan, now is the time. Before you head off to the soft, gentle sounds of Alexandra Semikanova. Or later, guys.